Hi, my name is Mary Phelan. My website is telepathictv.com and consciousnessworkshops.com. You can watch some episodes of Telepathic TV and play with my online oracle cards, the inner wisdom cards and the spirit animal cards on telepathictv.com. And thanks for joining me. This is part 2 of the Introduction to Tarot. I had been talking about in the last section about storing our cards and how it's really important to be able to recognize your cards on your shelf, particularly if you become a collector like a lot of people do. And this is an example of the deck that I duplicated one of the cards, photocopied it onto printer paper, or onto photo paper, and then glued it onto the pouch. It's a good way to recognize your cards. When we shuffle our cards, it's important to make sure that we don't damage them like we were saying before, but finding a way that's comfortable for you and sticking with it. If you go through a degree of indecision when you go to pull a card and it's like, oh, do I shuffle this? Do I shuffle it like this? What do I do? How do I select it? Do I fan them out? Do I just take the top card? I see a lot of people get stuck there where they get frozen about, okay, well, how do I pull a card? Well, devising the method that works for you and sticking with it is good, because then your unconscious, subconscious, superconscious mind knows exactly how you're going to be retrieving the cards and can use that information to communicate with you more effectively. And also, you don't go first thing into the reading with an intellectual conflict, because then you will be drawing the cards with your mind and not with the other part of you that's going to be the one that's interpreting the cards. Just know that whatever card, no matter how much indecision you've gone through, no matter what card ends up in your hand, that's the right card. And when you know that, it really takes a lot of that debate out of the picture. When you store your cards and keep them, I recommend having a little area that's your own private area for doing readings and storing your cards, and maybe having your altar or doing your various things like that there. If you don't have a whole room that you can do this in, one idea is to get a dressing screen and put around the corner, and then a nice little table. And finding the table can be a fun, wonderful thing that you do with yourself, going to a resale shop, looking for just the right size table and chair and getting comfortable and setting it up there, putting crystals on it, putting your books around there. The more we feel spiritual and make that spiritual connection with our environment, the more we're going to open up. And do your readings there every day, because we do build up an energy around where we sit, where we sleep, where we spend our time. When we go to a motel, the first night that we stay there, it's very uncomfortable. It's not our bed, different sounds, and we toss and turn all night. By the second night, it's starting to feel a little more comfortable, and by the third night, we're feeling completely at home. And then it's time to go home the next day, and it almost feels like we've forgotten something there. We keep looking under the bed. I don't want to leave anything behind. What you're sensing is that energy, that portal, that opening that you create with your own field everywhere you go, and you feel a little piece of you. So doing a reading in the same place every day, you build up that sense of you. Not only does that create an energetic field around you so that you feel safe to really open up and to gather powerful information, but it opens up a connection. It's like a portal, literally, to these other dimensions, and you can download much more accurate information. And it makes you feel safe and secure because it's your own spot and you're very familiar with everything going on around you. I keep a space like that in my home, and I do readings out of that place, and I do readings for myself there. To create that same effect or that same feel when I travel, because I do go around to different expos and places in the country and teach and do readings for people, is I have a travel bag. It's just a nice pouch, like a carry bag. It has my reading pad on it, which I'll talk about in just a minute. It has my travel deck of cards, which I have coded with the idea that they're going to be my deck that I read with outside of the house. And so they have a whole different energy field around them than my own personal set or a set I use in my practice at home or in my workspace. So if you get a travel bag, if you do go places, it's really wonderful. You can get your deck of cards, you can have your travel crystals to store with your decks, and that helps to keep them charged and cleared too. Now the idea of clearing your deck is an interesting one, and I highly recommend it. Not because other people get negativity or all this terrible stuff all over your deck, although they will get fingerprints and everything, but what happens is every time we touch something, and this is something I teach in the psychometry section of the psychic development series that I teach, when we touch something, we absorb, we have access to, it's like a newspaper of everything that has ever touched it, or everything that will ever touch that object. So when people touch the cards, there is a psychometric impression that you get. When you make it your own, you can clear it by saying, I'm tuning this object, this deck of cards, into the frequency band, like a radio station. That's me, that's mine. And then I won't hear the static from those other stations. So that's what we do when we clear a deck, is we tune it in to our frequency, and we let that other frequency turn into the nothingness because we are not placing our attention on it. Crystals can do this, our breath can do this, in the moonlight can do this, in the sunlight, put under your bed, many different ways you can clear your deck. But really what's clearing your deck is your intention to do this, is your intention to tune it back into your frequency. One thing that I do, particularly after I've done readings for other people, and I let other people touch the cards, which I explain in a future lesson why I do, but I turn them all right side up. I do not use reversals in my readings, but I will take it under advisement if someone draws a card and goes out of their way to turn it the other way and hand it to me unconsciously. I do see that as a diminishment or a blockage in relationship to what that card means. But overall, I don't use reversals because I feel the cards aren't here to show us negative things and roadblocks. They're here to show us ways around roadblocks. And so I use the majority of my definitions to show me a way out, not just to prove to me that I'm stuck, because I already knew that or I wouldn't be getting the reading. So when you have your deck and you program it and it's yours and you clear it, whatever way you choose, in effect turning that radio dial to your particular station with those cards, all is right and everything is wonderful. Back in the early days when I first started doing readings, I would put my cards back in order again by the major arcana and the minor arcana. I also found that that helped me to understand and to get familiar with the deck. It's not about memorizing your deck. It's really about getting to know your deck. We don't memorize our friends. We get to know our friends. And it all happens outside of the scope of our brain. If you memorize your friends, your readings will only go to a certain place and they're going to hit a ceiling because it's a mental database. This card means this list of 10 things and they're asking about this, so this plus this must equal this. And you start doubting yourself and you get out of your own flow. It's not about memorizing other people's experiences with these friends. It's about getting to know and establishing our own connection to them. And then the reading reads itself, and it's not a matter of wondering if you're right or wrong. So it's very important to see it like that too. Okay, well this wraps up part 2. Please join me for part 3 and we'll go further into doing storing our cards and clearing our deck and shuffling and doing readings. Thank you again. Check me out on telepathictv.com and consciousnessworkshops.com.